Is there ever a time where you're getting paid by those who are doing the rally and you're also getting paid by those who are the counter protesters? Is there any check and balance, any litmus test for those who you're paying to show up at these events that they at least understand the event?
It compensates people for their time and their effort, and it pays people a very solid amount of money, but it's not enough for people to betray their convictions.
This is Unshaken and Unafraid with Joe Pags.
You see these big crowds show up at some of these events. Could be No Kings, could be something else. But a large gathering just shows up, and it seems to be organic, and sometimes maybe it's not. I want to get with a guy who's the CEO of a group called a company called Crowds on Demand. It's Adam Swart. Adam, how are you? Good to see you.
Joe, thanks so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. People have been very excited about me having you on, and the reason's kind of simple. We're seeing these crowds pop up, and you wonder, out loud and sometimes to yourself, is that real? Is that organic? Do they really believe what they're saying? Do they all make those signs and show up at the same exact time in the same exact place? And it turns out some of them might be getting paid. And I don't want to talk about specific, gatherings unless you want to. But your company, Crowds on Demand, you go to crowdsondemand.com to find out more about it. What was the genesis of this group? But what made you think to yourself, this might work out?
Well, I've been doing this work for about 13 years. I started the company in college, 2012. And we started doing, my background is in Democratic Party campaign work. Now I'm an independent. We work with conservatives. We work with liberals. A lot of what we do has nothing to do with politics. That's kind of a big misunderstanding, is that everything we do is political.
Yeah.
But I got started, basically there was a huge demand to staff events, right? You would have events, in the early 2010s when I was in college, where you would have Gavin Newsom be speaking to 5 people, right? And Kamala Harris, right? This was in California. That's where I grew up, right? So literally, I've been to events where Gavin Newsom is talking to 2 people, right? And it's very embarrassing, right? Because if you think about it, think about the greatest speeches of all time, right? If you think of Martin Luther King, I have a dream speech. Imagine if he gave that to 5 people, it wouldn't have the same context, right? So these people needed people to show up at their events. And additionally, there was a huge value of having people protest the other side's events, right? And especially you can use the media, right? If you're talking about a liberal event protest, right? You can have liberal media out there essentially enhancing the effect of your protest, right? And vice versa on the other side, right? So now you can have, let's just say someone's having a rally with 1,000 people. I could put 10, 20 protesters outside and get the same amount of airtime that 1,000-person rally did. So it's extremely effective. So I was doing this for very little money in college, and I was like, wow, I'm doing this, getting paid very, very poorly, getting treated very poorly.
Yeah.
And what if I started a business based on this? And actually sort of the impetus for this is, I was in Los Angeles going to University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, right? And there were a ton of these out of work actors, right? So I was like, what if I just put these out of work actors to work in these political events, right? Now we've sort of changed the business model a little bit. I'll get into that, but that's how we started. It was like, okay, we can fill your press conference, we can fill your product launch, we can fill whatever the kind of event is with a ton of these out of work actors who are essentially playing that role. So as you can imagine, there was a huge demand for this, right? So we started in LA October, September of 2012. Then we expanded to New York, that same year, and a bunch of other cities within the sort of next few months. And then obviously now we are a nationwide company.
And it's Adam Swart. His company is called Crowds on Demand. He's the CEO. Go to crowdsondemand.com. It's not really about those who are there. It's about the perception of what happened that day at that rally, at that protest, at that thing. The news comes out and covers it. Wow, 2,000 people here. Whereas, as you said, with 2 people, nobody shows up to cover it. And then when you put it on the news, it looks even bigger than 2,000 people. So that's the idea. Is there ever a time where you're getting paid by those who are doing the rally and you're also getting paid by those who are the counter protesters? Can you make money both ways in the same thing?
Well, I wouldn't be a very good business person if I did that. It doesn't. So I'm not an attorney, right? So I don't. An attorney
Right.
could not legally do that,
Right.
right? I could legally do it, but I can't ethically do it. And if it got out that I did that, no one would ever work with me again. So it wouldn't make sense for me to do that. And in fact, I haven't. But
Gotcha.
that opportunity has come up many times where we'll be working for one side of an issue and the other side will contact us, so that the temptation is there, but I'm
Yeah.
never truly tempted because, Joe, I've been in business 13 years. I wouldn't have been in business for 13 years if I operated in an unscrupulous manner. But
Right.
that's what people don't understand about Crowds on Demand is part of how we've survived this long in so many different political administrations and different cultural climates is we have a very strong ethical framework. Obviously, we're nonviolent, we're peaceful, we're law-abiding protests, right? So if you see a riot out there, right, I just want your viewers, your listeners to know that's not us, right? So if you're seeing something like that, don't go send me hate mail and say,
Right.
Adam, you're doing that, because I get mail every time there's some riot because people falsely think that had anything to do with us, right? We're in the persuasion business, right? My goal is to create, I think of myself as more of like an ad agency, right?
Okay.
If you're doing a Super Bowl ad, right, you want to make the best ad possible. You want to make the best splash possible such that the people who are watching that ad, right, they're interested, you capture their attention, and then they're going to go buy that product, right? So you're going to spend a lot of money on that ad, and ultimately what you want, you've bought people's attention, but now you have to convince them to buy your product. So
Right.
I think of protests like that, right? Protests get your attention, but ultimately now I have to persuade you, here's my cause, here's the company I'm trying to sell, whatever. Now this is why you should, listen to what I'm saying.
I get it, and it makes sense. And I'm not here to say that what you're doing is bad, because I don't think it is. You're a businessman. You're obviously doing it very successfully. But what jumps into my brain is I will collaborate. I've got a very large social following, right? I will collaborate with a company or with an organization or with a thing that I align with. And I would not do it. I've turned down, how many thousands of dollars I've turned down because people wanted me to pitch something that I didn't believe in. Sports betting, I turned down. Alcohol, I turned down. Marijuana, cannabis, I turned down. So if I'm not for it, I won't do it. I don't know if there's a litmus test for you. When somebody gets a hold of you and says, Adam, and I want you to answer in a second. Let me just get the question out. Because again, I'm not against your business. I just want to make sure that if somebody comes to you and says, let's do this thing, and you, Adam Swart, are not somebody who can believe in that or who can align with that, will you still take the job?
Well, the way that I would look at it is if I believe it is a cause, I don't have to 100% agree with your cause to take your business. But I do have to believe that there is merit in your cause. So about 8 years ago, I started working with cryptocurrency companies, right? And 8 years ago, I did not really understand cryptocurrency at all. I thought it was kind of sketchy.
Right.
But I believed that big finance and the big banks were trying to put them out of business unfairly.
Yes.
So I thought there were scrupulous operators and unscrupulous operators, but I believed that the entire establishment was against them. So I was like, I'm not 100% for crypto, but I'm also feel like the game is currently rigged against crypto. So by taking them there on their business, I am giving them voice. So it doesn't mean Adam Swart has to 100% agree with them. It means that I have to think that they have a point, which I did. And we've been working with cryptocurrency companies ever since, 2017, 2018, right? So that is a good example of where I'm at. So it doesn't have to be, and I'm sure you're the same way, Joe. I'm sure if you don't have to 100% think a product is the best product in the world, but if you thought it was a bad product, and you mentioned alcohol and things like that, marijuana as things you personally just cannot get on board with, then those are things that you would not promote, right? But you might not have to think this is the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, and I like how you explained that. It's Adam Swart, CEO, Crowds on Demand. Go to crowdsondemand.com. Let me take it to the next step, though. So you as the CEO don't have to 100% buy into it. And the crypto example was great. But it's not really you out there holding the sign. And it's not you out there who's doing the protest or the rally. So what about those people? Are they just responding because they're getting money? Because, Adam, we'll see some people who show up with a microphone and a camera and say, why are you for this or why are you against that? And many times the people won't have any clue. Now, I don't know if those people were hired by you or not. I'm just saying at these rallies or protests, you'll see that, where people don't have any idea why they're there, but they're there at a certain time and they leave at a certain time.
Yeah.
So is there any check and balance, any litmus test for those who you're paying to show up at these events that they at least understand the event?
Yes, and I know you don't believe us, but let me explain it this way.
Please.
We have a vetting process, which I call a reverse jury questionnaire. So a jury questionnaire, they're trying to make sure that you're unbiased. We're trying to make sure you're biased. So I actually have multiple people who work for us whose job it is for every event that we do to have a conversation with each participant. And sometimes
Good.
that's extremely time consuming, as you can imagine. If you have 1,000 participants, right, or more,
Yeah.
you have to call each person. And it might be a 15-minute call, 10-minute call, but you're outlining the issue and you're making sure they support it, right? Now, the money that we pay people is good money, but I like to say it's enough money to compensate you for your time, but it's not enough money to have you betray your convictions, right?
Gotcha.
Now, your politics I don't know what your politics are, Joe, but let's just say you lean conservative, right?
I am, yeah.
And you're conservative, right? So if somebody were to offer you a couple $100s to go to a BLM protest, I'd imagine that you and most of your listeners would say, no, I wouldn't take a couple $100 to go to BLM.
Adam, a couple of $100,000 and I wouldn't go and protest for BLM. So
Right.
I get your point. Go ahead.
Right, sure. And I mean, now I'm sure there's some of your viewers that say, okay, for a couple $100,000, I do whatever it takes. So I'm not. So the money that we pay is more like in the hundreds, not obviously hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it compensates people for their time and their effort, and it pays people a very solid amount of money, but it's not enough for people to betray their convictions.
Yes.
So I think that what we've found is that we get people who are supportive of a cause. Now, of course, are there instances individually where people might really, really need the money and may kind of act like they're in more support than they are?
Yeah.
That could well happen. But I do think it's very interesting, and I'm not naming you because you seem like an extremely principled person, Joe, but a lot of our haters from our various talk show hosts who've come at me are people who make 7 and 8 figures, and they're like, oh, well, they're making 7 and 8 figures, but they want you to believe that their views are genuine, and yet you're insulting my people who are making a couple $100 and saying, oh, well, that's not genuine. So,
well,
like,
I think that's
those
fair.
things
No, Adam, I think that's fair. I really do. But here's the difference, I think, and I'm not going to speak for any of these other talk show hosts. I make a lot of money, but I do so doing a talk show. I don't do so because I believe in this product or that product. I do it because the advertisers want to sponsor my show because it's pretty popular. Having said that, when I do a collaboration, I always put when I post that it is a paid partnership. I always disclose. And I don't know how you could disclose those that you're hiring. And I don't know that you have to disclose, but I think those who are out there holding the signs or at the rally or pounding their fists, I think that the general public should be informed the way that I inform when I do sponsor or partner with somebody. Is there any impetus by you to do that? Is that an ethical thing that hits you in the stomach a little bit where you go, maybe we should let people know that some of these people are paid or not?
Well, yeah. Well, it's a really good point, Joe, but I guess my take, I have a slightly different take, is that there are a lot of people out there at any kind of rally that are what I call incentivized activists, right? So labor unions are infamous for doing this, right? So many of the people who are at Democratic Party rallies, for example, are members of labor unions whose unions essentially compel them to be there. So now, they're not legally compelled to be there, but if they don't show up, they're going to get graveyard shifts. If they do show up, they're going to get promoted, right? So I was just talking to a firefighter who was telling me that he's like middle of the road or maybe leans Trump, and he was told he had to go to a Kamala rally, right? Because that was what his leadership told him to do, right? And he went because he didn't want to get penalized. And he wasn't like a hardcore Trumpist, but he definitely was leaning there, and he was pretty annoyed that that's what he had to do. So I guess my point is that, and I'm not saying that doesn't happen on the right. I know on the right there are church groups and other groups that have people who turn out for different reasons. So I guess my point is, on Capitol Hill, let's just say you see these press conferences, Ted Cruz or whatever out there having a press conference. There are 15,000 Capitol Hill staff members, both Republican and Democrat, and they're expected to attend these press conferences and events. So if you see a ton of people in a crowd in D.C., 15,000 of them could be paid Capitol Hill staff members. So it's a roundabout answer to your question, Joe, but your question is, should people disclose that they have an ulterior motive? That's what you're getting at. And the reality is that I am very okay if we all have to put on a little like lapel on our shoulder and that says this is why I'm here. But the reality is that would have to be the case for everybody. So because, okay, maybe my people are getting $100, $200, but there are people out there who are told to do it by their jobs. There are people whose university tells them, whose church tells them, whose job tells them. Those people are also incentivized, even if they're not getting paid directly for the rally. It's expected for them to come. So that's the concern is, I feel like it's not fair to single our people out.
Well, it's so-called part of the job is what you're saying for these other people, and I get that. I understand that completely, but there is this reason that we have to disclose. It's actually illegal for me not to disclose if I'm getting paid for some sponsorship. And I'm not suggesting that you're doing anything wrong. I like your answer a lot, and it does make sense to me. You keep on saying it's $100 or $200. Can it be more than that? I've heard between $200 and $500. How much does it depend on who the client is and what their budget is? How does that work?
Yeah, so it really depends, right? And I hate to like say it's a specific amount because it depends on the specific day, the specific client, what we're asking for. Because as you imagine, some of our events involve providing an audience to sit in the back of a press conference and enjoy a complimentary buffet, right? So that's going to be paying a little bit less than somebody who was out there in December in Connecticut standing on a street corner for 12 hours, right? So those aren't identical events. So that the latter person might be getting paid a lot more than the former, right? So it really depends on the scope, and also it matters about like how difficult the event is going to be. If let's just say we have conservative demonstrators in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, which is the most liberal part of the country, right? You'd have to imagine that those people should be getting paid more because they're going to be hassled by a lot of the leftists, right? So I want to compensate them for the fact that they're going to have to deal with that kind of hassle, right? Conversely, if you're doing a liberal rally in Mississippi, right, that would be kind of difficult, right?
It would, yeah.
Not easy to find liberals in Mississippi. So that is kind of the thing. And by the way, when I say I work for both sides, I don't mean that I work for both sides of the same issue, as I said at the start of the program.
Yeah, I'm glad you don't.
Is that I am not a liberal or conservative or Republican or Democrat. So I don't owe either party or any candidate my loyalty. What I am is a very common sense person, and my views are very common sense. So if you're a liberal who is coming to me saying we need to have a campaign to demand better health care and demand that people don't die because they're on the street and they can't access good health care, I'm 100% there, right? If you're a conservative and says, Minneapolis has become a hellscape because it is so dangerous and the cops aren't responding and we need to stand up for our police and public safety, I'm with you, right? So those aren't contradictory. That doesn't mean I work for both sides. That means I'm working for common sense.
And that makes sense. And Adam, I appreciate you saying that. It's Adam Swart. He's the CEO, Crowds on Demand, crowdsondemand.com. Can you give us a range? Because those watching and listening are to go, well, how much can I make? Is it $100? Can it be as much as $1,000? Is it less than that? Is there a definitive range, or the sky's the limit?
Well, 1,000 is high for a daily compensation. It would have to be like some sort of very kind of extraordinary sort of set of circumstances to get paid in that range. Typically, the day rates is in the low hundreds,
Okay.
as a general fact. So when people have gotten more, it's because it's something that is extraordinarily difficult. And that therefore requires a higher
Yeah.
level of compensation. But
It makes
obviously,
sense.
it's a business, so we tend to not like to go into detail on what we pay and for what. But
Right.
safe to say that's the general range.
I got you. Go ahead.
So we have thousands of people every day applying to work with us. Interestingly enough. So for all of the sort of misunderstanding of our business, there are a lot of people who really want to be compensated for expressing their views, and people on all sides of the political spectrum, and they want to get paid for doing it peacefully, and they want to get paid for doing it the right way, which is a beautiful thing.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you that. I'm glad you went there. You're getting thousands of people a day who want to take part and want to go out and protest or rally and make a couple of bucks. What percentage do you think you turn away? Is there a high percentage that you say, yeah, you're probably not right for this?
Yeah, we turn away a majority of, and part of it is because we don't always have need for somebody. Like somebody might say, I'm a liberal environmentalist in rural West Virginia. Well, we'll log that person in our system, but we may not have an event that requires a liberal environmentalist in rural West Virginia for another year, and maybe in a year's time something comes up, and we could look and assess if that person is a good fit. But in many cases, it's just simply because we don't need that person's viewpoints in their region.
Yeah.
But in other cases, it's because we feel that we want people who are really articulate and committed to the idea of peaceful, persuasive advocacy.
When people go to crowdsondemand.com and they want to hire you because I want 1,000 people, what kind of lead time do you need? If I need 1,000 people tomorrow, could you have them there?
Tomorrow would be tough. We tend for something like that, we probably want a few days to a week to be able to make sure that occurs, right? We do turn around 24, 48-hour events. As you can imagine, that's more expensive.
Yeah.
But it does happen. I always like to say, like any business, if you go to any business, you're going to they're going to want more time. The longer, the better. But we definitely we turn around very quickly a lot of events when necessary, because certain things arise. Right, you have a dispute. A lot of our business, by the way, Joe, is business to business disputes. It's
really
awareness of corruption in industries, right? It's raising awareness of bad actors. It's industry trade groups kind of calling out bad actors in their fields, right? So it's not, people think of us as a political firm, but a lot of what we do is using the power of advocacy for our corporate clients.
That's very interesting. It is Adam Swart, CEO, Crowds on Demand. You seem like a nice guy. You're running a business that's legal. You're making good money. I'm proud of you. You're an American success story. But let's talk about a little bit of the underlying ethics of it. And again, I'm not calling you unethical. Don't misunderstand. If Gavin Newsom can only draw 2 people, screw him. He only gets 2 people. You know what I mean? You're making it look like there's something more attractive there than is there. And I don't know. To me, and again, I get paid to collaborate with people, again, only products that I believe in, only organizations I believe in. So I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong. I'm just wondering, in your private moments, do you think to yourself, Ted Cruz couldn't get more than 5 people? Screw him. He can't get more than 5 people, because now we're making it look like these people that are hiring you have something more important and more exciting and more enticing to say when they really don't. Does that ever work on you or not?
I think it's about the context, right? So
Okay.
I think the way that I look at it is it is like advertising, right? Like, I mean, I think that
Yes.
anyone who thinks that most people in crowds don't have some ulterior motive to be there is naive. So I'm not really worried about what they think.
Okay.
What I'm more focused on is it's more like an advertisement, right? So do wealthier interests have more ability to advertise than poorer interests, right? The Heritage Foundation has a ton of money, so they can go advertise, right?
Yes.
And therefore grow their following and therefore grow their influence, right? There might be another organization that doesn't have the resources of the Heritage Foundation that cannot grow their following because they lack the resources to essentially advertise as the Heritage Foundation does. So, I mean, you're a capitalist, Joe, and
Yes.
so am I. So I think that if the general concern is, hey, does money buy you the ability to set a beautiful backdrop for your movement and your product, then the answer is yes. But let me give you two examples for why it's not manipulative, right? So number one is the Tea Party. So the Tea Party was essentially like very, very well funded by the Koch brothers and other conservative billionaires, right?
Yes.
But it was a movement that, and it started with, 20, 30 guys with the tricolor hats dressed like George Washington,
Right.
Kind of raising awareness of, Obama's policies that they didn't like, whatever, right? So, Fox and conservative media really propped this up in part because the Koch brothers hired good PR people and really expanded the movement, right? But ultimately, why did that movement grow is because it tapped into something that Americans were feeling. So yes, if the Koch brothers hadn't really given it all that money, it wouldn't have gotten on Fox. It wouldn't have kind of grown like it did. But ultimately, it only grew because it resonated with people.
Yeah. Well, Adam, I want to stop you for a second because that's a very, very good comparison. The Koch brothers comparison makes a lot of sense to me. The advertising comparison doesn't, because I know it's an ad.
Yeah.
When I know that it's an ad, like if I'm watching television, go to a commercial break. People listening to my radio show or watching my show, I go to a commercial break. They know that is paid sponsorship. The Koch brothers stuff, you don't know that. I was here in San Antonio in 2009 at the Tea Party event. We had 14,000 people show up. And you're right. Most of them might not have shown up had the Koch brothers and other conservative, big money donors not made people aware of it. So I love that comparison. I kind of reject the advertising one. You get why, right?
That's fine. That's fine, and we can get into it. But I guess to kind of extrapolate with the Koch brothers, I mean, many organizations, and I don't want to get into all the organizations, but I think anyone who's been involved in politics knows there are a number of very, very well funded organizations that pay for your trips. I mean, I remember I was in college student government, and there was an organization, I'm not going to name it, but that paid for me to go travel first class to Washington, D.C. and stay at a 5-star hotel, for a week to attend their conference. And I'm like, I was nobody. I was just in student government, and they probably funded my trip to the tune of $5,000, right? And I was nobody, right? So the point being that they did this to many other people. So all of which to say is people's participation can be facilitated, right? Now, of course, it was an organization that I supported and that I liked, but they certainly facilitated my participation there, right? So then the other thing is that so that's one example of where money bought success, but money because it ultimately resonated. The counter example is where money did not buy success, right? Because it didn't resonate. I don't know whether you remember this gentleman who ran for president in 2016 named Jeb Bush. He was the brother.
I've heard of Jeb. Yes, I've heard of him.
Have you heard of this guy? Yeah, I mean, so he spent $200-300 million, he raised to run for president. I mean, I know he seems like this kind of irrelevant, pathetic little guy now, but he was considered this was the guy, right?
Yeah.
So he spent all this money, so everybody knew his name at the time, right? But ultimately, where did he end? Did he win a single delegate? Did he win a single state? No. His money actually, he was able to manufacture the ability to kind of get in front of people, buy ads, whatever, buy lobbyists, etc. But ultimately, his message did not resonate. Yeah. So I guess my point is, I almost feel like some people oversell my capabilities when they say, oh, well, the Gavin Newsom or any of these other people who kind of have money kind of support would not be there But for money, it's like, no, money just buys you the ability to be out there. It doesn't guarantee the support.
Well, no, I get it. And Adam, that makes perfect sense. I'm pretty successful, but it's because the product is good. So I can go on Facebook or Twitter or TikTok or whatever. And if my videos suck, nobody's going to watch them. So I'm with you.
That's
So
right.
in other words, you're amplifying something, and it's up to that something to either take hold or not. And
Right.
again, I'm not against your business. I just wondered what the ethical battle might be in your head when you were thinking, let me do this, but am I amplifying something that doesn't deserve it? And just because they have money, I'm going to do it anyway. But I think that you make a lot of sense. Even if you have 1,000 people show up and you amplify this issue, if the issue sucks, it's going to go away anyway.
Ultimately, it'll fizzle. You can get a lot of attention. You can. I mean, look at Andrew Cuomo right now, right? I mean, that's what they're trying to do with him, and it is failing spectacularly,
Yes,
right? I
it
mean,
is.
you have all of these very wealthy donors who are putting millions and tens of millions. I mean, the guy is funded up the wazoo, but ultimately his message is not resonating with the New Yorkers. So I guess my point is that yes, setting the context matters, and it's you're going to do better if you hire me or whatever than if you didn't.
Right.
But ultimately, we've worked with a lot of movements and we've built a lot of amazing movements, but there are a lot of movements that we've worked with that haven't resonated because they just haven't caught on.
Yeah.
And because they just don't resonate, and that's okay.
I want to leave you with this, and I appreciate all the time today. It's very, very interesting business model. And again, you're an American success story, and I'm proud of you for doing that. You're doing it legally. You're not doing anything wrong. I think the ethical questions had to be asked, and I think you answered them just fine. But let me leave you with this, and I wonder if you'll answer this. You might not. What's the typical spend by somebody who contacts you? Is there a range that you would want to get into, or you don't want to say?
Sure. Well, it really depends. So I would say again, most people kind of think of us as, okay, we're doing multi-million dollar, multi-city campaigns, and certainly that's something that we've done, where it's multi-million dollars, dozens of people every single day for months, and across the country and cities across the country. So that's kind of certainly one facet of our business. But
Right.
A lot of times people say, okay, let us bring together a couple hundred people, and that for like within the 5 figures, right? Like mid 5 figures, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
like a lot of what we're doing, the kind of average spend is kind of typically well into the 5 or 6 figures. You're probably not talking about 7 figures. Although of course we do that, but
Yeah.
our average event is probably 5 or 6 figures. We don't really do anything below 5 figures just because it costs us so much to deploy people. And there's a risk and everything in doing that. So we try to focus on events. And plus, I don't want to deploy people and take someone's money if I don't think it's going to be successful. And
Yeah.
if you're going to say, okay, look, I put 5 people outside for a day, I just don't know how effective that's going to be in a majority of circumstances. So we try to, my ego won't allow me to take on causes that I don't think at least have a sizable chance of success.
Adam, very interesting conversation. I appreciate you taking the time today. You answered everything just fine. Crowds on Demand CEO, crowdsondemand.com, and it's Adam Swart. Go and follow him everywhere and go check out his website too. Let's do it again, my friend. I appreciate you coming on.
Anytime. Thanks, Joe.
I hope you enjoyed that interview with Adam Swart, the CEO of Crowds on Demand. I asked him some pretty good questions. I didn't hate his answers, but we certainly don't agree on some stuff. Now a preview of my next Unshaken and Unafraid with Joe Pags. This is Esty. Esty is one of the best Kamala Harris impersonators with the cadence and the phrases and her tone of voice that you're going to find. Had a great conversation. That'll be the next one. Let me give you a preview. I have to get your story. We have to figure out how you found out you sound like Kamala Harris. I have to figure out how you go from being a nurse and you somehow transform yourself into being Kamala Harris almost like on a dime. But I would be an idiot to not take my opportunity to interview you as Kamala Harris. Can we do that for a second?
Let's go for it.
All right, here we go. And again, she goes by Esty. Go follow her everywhere. We've got the former Vice President of the United States of America, Kamala Harris, on the line. I never thought I'd be able to interview you. How are you, Mrs. Vice President?
All things considered, I did try to be sober for you, Joe. I did try to be sober for you today, but I do feel better when I don't stop. So, I think I'll put it down after the interview, but all things considering, I'm all right. How are you doing?
I'm okay. How's Doug? How are the kids? Everybody good?
Doug, I don't know where he is. I haven't seen him in a couple of weeks, and his ferret of a daughter, I'm not really sure either. We don't communicate unless we need to.
You don't know where Doug is. He's just missing.
Last I saw him, he was in the dungeon. I don't know. He's the reason I lost. Right now, I am just at an all-time outs with everybody who didn't let me win that election. So, I'm still a little sour about that.
It's pretty interesting because so far, since you lost the election, you blamed everybody but yourself. So do you take any blame at all for why you didn't win?
Absolutely not. I did everything I was told to do. I did everything by the book. Joe and Jill were on their own, hunt to take me down. They were power hungry, right? They had Hunter Biden just running around, not letting me do my job. He was stealing my cocaine all the goddamn time. He would hide it all over the East Wing. All right. And I knew of some of the secret spots, and I think Trump found out where they were. That's why they demolished in the East Wing, Joe.
So
That's
it's
the real reason.
It's not about a ballroom. It's about possible illicit drugs being found there.
I mean, it might be about a ballroom too. Who the hell knows? But that's all shot to hell. I was going to resell that. You're missing the point, Joe. You need to focus. You've been unburdened by what has been, and that is the Trump administration.
I feel a little burdened. Thank you for unburdening me. It is Kamala Harris, the former vice president of the United States. You wrote a book called 107, and I think that means the days that you were handed the nomination, you didn't work for it at all, you didn't win any elections, you didn't get any votes, didn't have to primary anybody, and then for the next 107 days, you spent $2 billion to lose. How do you explain that?
Well, I resent that. I'll just tell you right now, I wasn't handed anything. I got scar tissue on my knee pads to prove it. I mean, Joe, I don't think y'all understand the things I had to go through. All right. That was even to get into the seat. Once I got the seat and to deal with Joe and the diarrhea, I mean, it was a lot. It would be a lot for anyone. So I wasn't really handed much. I wasn't handed anything. I worked for that seat.
So it was hard to sit down anywhere in the White House because of Joe's incontinence? Is that what I'm hearing?
100%. His wife, she just left him there. I was the one that had to put in the suppositories. I was the one that had to tranquilize him in time for the speeches. How do you think we got him on stage? That was all with my doing. I should really qualify for a nursing license at this point because I was his caretaker, Joe. I was the caretaker of the man that was elected to be the president. So tell me how I'm not qualified to run the country when I was running the man who was running the country.
You said the word qualified a few times. Recently, you sat down for an interview, and you said, some have said that I'm the most qualified candidate to ever run for the office. Now, I've done my research. Well,
that is a fact.
I hear you, but I'm not able to find anybody who agrees with that. Who are these some people?
It's a lot of people. My mother, for one, when she's not berating me about, coconut trees and meat falling on my head since childhood, she is proud of me. Willie Brown is another example. I mean, these people all believed in me. They are the reason why I got into where I was and where I will be.
Oh, where we have been. So Willie Brown says you're qualified for the office or for something else. What are the qualifications for Willie Brown?
Joe, you're missing the passage of time here and its significance. You're not comprehending the significance of, today is today, Joe. And tomorrow will be today, tomorrow. So when you take that into consideration with diplomacy and all its contingencies, then you understand the way the world works.
I don't think I know what you just said. So when it comes to when it comes to Venn diagrams, what's the attraction there? I don't get it.
Well, when you put these Venn diagrams together, first of all, Joe, you know my obsession with school buses. It doesn't come from a place of nowhere. I rode a short yellow school bus every damn day for years, every damn day. And every year it got shorter and shorter. That yellow school bus, I just love the school buses. And when we were on the buses to keep, us calm, because I took that bus with a lot of other special people, special like myself. And Venn diagrams, they just broke a lot of things down. That's how Ukraine and Russia were explained to me. And I handled it very well.
Wait. I don't think I asked about school buses at all. And now we're on Russia and Ukraine. So in other words, you're so smart that I can't even follow the line of thinking. Thank God you had a couple before we started the interview. I'd really be lost.
I don't expect you to understand what goes on at those kinds of pay levels. But let's just say I'm the most qualified in world history. I want to say that's a fact. It wasn't me. I wasn't the one that said it.
Can we ask who said it, or we don't know that either?
Many have said it, Joe. That's not the point. You're like one of those people that ask me about the border. I've been to the border.
So I've
been there. I came there. I unlocked the doors and I left. But I've been there. I was the one that unlocked it, so I was there.
You had a couple of different topics that you threw at me here. Let's go Russia, Ukraine. Could you? I'm a lay person. I know nothing about world geography. Can you explain Russia and Ukraine?
Well, it's quite, I know it's complicated, so try to stay with me, Joe, and to the viewers who are listening, I'm speaking right now. All right, I'm speaking, so just stop what you're doing for a second. Because, I studied the maps. So to my brothers and sisters, everyone listening, I want y'all to understand something. Ukraine is a country. All right, it's a small country.
Okay.
And Russia is a bigger country. All right, it's much bigger. So when you put these countries next to each other, there's a line in between them. I don't know if y'all could see. There's a line in between them, and right now they're fighting along that passage, along that line, and we need to make sure that there's democracy in that region.
Unshaken and Unafraid with Joe Pags, special guest Esti Palti, the Kamala Harris impersonator. You probably follow her on socials. We'll have that very soon. Make sure you subscribe.